Welcome to People Love Process. Vector art tends to be a combination of hard edge shapes, sharp corners, and precise curves. But at times, you want something to have a more organic aesthetic to it, and that is where custom vector brushes come into play. In this movie, I'll show you how experimentation and trying new things leads to new creative possibilities. You'll also learn how to create your own vector line work and art brushes in Adobe Illustrator as well. This is going to be a very engaging movie, so let's get right into it. Where did this all start for me personally? Well, I do a lot of branding, and the local TEDx event hosts have hired me each time they've done a local TEDx event to brand them, and the event one year was called Fearless. And the whole idea behind this event theme was to act on those ideas you have. Be fearless about them. Don't let fear hold you back. Try new things. Move into new areas and change the way you do things. Try stuff that's new. And as I was thinking about that, I decided I should impose that on my creative process. So however I brand this should be in a way that I normally don't work. So I decided I couldn't work in vector form to create the logo mark. And so what did I decide to do? I decided I'm going to create a hand-painted logo. Now, ultimately, once I had that hand-painted, I streamlined it and created the final work you see here for Fearless. Kind of wanted it to be hard to read, but really not hard to read, just look hard to read. So Fearless. In the process of doing this, in the process of pushing myself to try something that I'd never really done before in the context of branding, I discovered creating these letter forms was a lot of fun. I wonder if I could paint out some brushes and turn them into assets I could use in Illustrator. So this is where it started. I just started painting on paper with watered down black acrylic paint to create the brushes. And so I want to show you how to create brushes in Adobe Illustrator because it's super easy. So let's go ahead and open up the brushes palette, and I'm going to go ahead and pull that over here like this. And you can see we have a bunch of brushes already. The top brushes here, the top 5 brushes here are art brushes, and the ones below it are pattern brushes. We're going to use pattern brushes for the line work brushes we're going to use in this project. And most people would kind of go, well, we're using a pattern. That's not a pattern. I know, but it still works better as I'm going to show you. So these are just scanned images here. And this one down here has already been image traced. And if I go ahead and zoom in on the line work brush, you can see that all this is a crudely drawn line that looks all broken up, and it doesn't have to be any more perfect than this. All you have to keep in mind is you want it to be straight. So on the left and right, it's going to kind of line up when it applies to a path. And I'll show you what I mean there. If you take this and you clone it, Command C, Command F, and you bring it over here, as it gets to this edge, it'll kind of continue that. And at the size we're using it, you won't see that little gap. So you want to make it straight in terms of that. The same goes with these in general, but they're far more forgiving since they're technically art brushes. So we're going to image trace this. So let's go ahead and open up image trace. And we'll bring that up, and we're going to image trace this at a high resolution or the highest possible setting. So what I want to do is I want to go to paths, and I want to go all the way to right to 100%, and then on noise all the way to the left. We don't want the white in this image to actually be image traced as part of the art. So we're going to go ignore white, and we're just going to click trace. Everything else will leave by default. Click trace. Once we've done that, you can see it's now traced. We'll go to expand in the top menu here, and we'll expand it. And we can go ahead and close this. You can see we have our vector artwork now. If I select this, notice this has a whole lot of anchor points in it. And I don't worry about it being kind of being bloated like this. It's already going to be bloated since it's a brush. but this does have a lot of anchor points. And if you wanted to try to simplify this, you could. You could select it like this, and you could go to Object. You can go down to, where is it, Path, and you can go to Simplify, and it'll bring up their menu like this. And then right now, it'll show you what you had and what you can get with these settings. And this cuts off over 12,000 anchor points. So it's not bad, and it still looks pretty good. So we could click that to say, okay. And now it's a little more optimized. It doesn't have, it's lost 15,000 anchor points, which is quite a bit. So that's not bad. So you can clean it up like that if you want to. Many times I don't even bother to do that because hard drive space is cheap, and I just go with it as is. But one thing you do want to do is this is just going to be a default black. You can see the color. It's not highlighting any swatch. And if I go to color here, it's just default black. And you really don't want that. You want to use what I call is an inky black. And I believe it's this one. Yeah, inky black. All this is, it's a CMYK approximation of RGB. And I made this mistake years ago where I created a whole brush set and I left it that default black. Well, those who bought it and work in RGB mode, it wasn't 100% black. Therefore, it appeared transparent in RGB mode, and I had to redo the whole set to fix that. So learn from my mistake. Don't leave it default black. Color it an inky black. Inky in CMYK will be this break. But you can see if just to kind of show you what I mean, let's go ahead and select this, and it's inky black. And we're going to go ahead and create another shape on top. And this one, we're just going to leave default black, which is just 100% K, like that. If we select this and we go to color and we select RGB, notice how it's not completely black. This is the break of default black. But if we go to the inky black and we do the same thing and go RGB color, notice it's 100% black. That's why you want to do it. So once again, learn from my mistake. So on this one down here, if we go to swatches again, select this, notice I have this set up. This is a process black, so I'll change this to inky black as well. So once you have that, once we have this image, I almost sound like Tweety Bird there for a second. Once we have this image twist, we color it inky black. Once it's colored inky black, just drag and drop into the brushes palette. It'll default. This is saying, do you want a scatter brush? No, we want an art brush. Then click OK. Now with this selected, the first thing you want to do is go to tints. This will allow you to color it. These can stay by default, everything else. And on the name, we can name it a different name. We'll go Beta Art Brush for no good reason, and we'll click OK. And you can see it's added it to the art brushes here. We can select this one, which is going to be a line work brush, and the same thing, drag and drop. It'll say, do you want it a scatter brush? Nope, we want this a pattern brush, not an art brush, but a pattern brush. Click OK. It's going to try to create a corner using their algorithm. We go, nope, don't want that. Just get rid of it. And this will just use for the straight lines. That's fine. Everything else, we'll select this and select tint so we can color it. Everything else we'll leave by default, and we'll go Beta Line Brush. So we're getting really original with our names. Click OK. And now you can see this one added here. So that's how you can create a brush. Now that you have them, how do you use them? Well, on an art brush, if you think traditional pigments, right now we're on the inky black. Let's go ahead and select this color of kind of aqua color. And we'll go ahead and we'll select the paintbrush. And with the beta brush selected, with the color loaded, with the tool of paintbrush, we can just go like this, and it will paint that out and apply that brush to the path. So this is one way you can do it. And if you go left to right, it'll go that way. If you go right to left, it'll paint it out in a different way where it flips it and it goes the opposite way. So that's nice as you're working. And you can do it just as I'm showing you with the paintbrush. Or if you have a regular brush, a regular path that is, let's say we go to Arch by Points. This is a plugin I use all the time. I go like this and I create an arch like that. You can have a predefined path like this and click on the brush and it will apply the brush. And to create the size just means how thick is that stroke. Well, this is 1. You can double it, go 2. You can go to 3. So that's how you control the size. And you have all the controls of adjusting the blend modes and transparencies as you see fit. So if we have this selected, we can go to the paintbrush. We can change our color from this turquoise. Let's go and we'll change it to a yellow color. And let's select a different brush that we have here. And we'll just kind of make this go over the top like this. Select that and we can go multiply and notice it'll change color. We can adjust the value to 80%. And that's how you can get some really nice interactive stuff. Now the line brush works the same way. It's just a line brush, so it's thinner. So if we go ahead and just type in a path like this is going to apply the art brush we had selected so it remembers. And we can apply the beta line brush to it, and you can see how it creates line work like that. Once again, if we change the color, maybe we go to red, we can do the line work like this. And of course, if you have a shape, let's say it's an oval shape like this, whatever color it is, you can apply the line work to it like that. So that's how you can create and use brushes. Now let's jump back into our project, the specific design we're creating. I want to show you the sketch that I drew out, and this is a pretty crude sketch. Doesn't have to be more precise than this, but like most things, I'll place it, scan it in, place it in Illustrator, adjust the opacity, lock the layer, and I'll start building. Well, what's the first thing I'm going to build? Well, I'm going to build the easiest shapes, these circular shapes. Make sure we're on the layer, and let's go ahead and go to Graphic Styles and select the stroke that I'm working with, and we can create a shape like this. We can even create, let's go to stroke. How big? I think this wants to be bigger. So go to 75. We'll create this outer shape like this. But these are too perfect. So this is where I'll go in on something like this, and I'll select this, and I'll just distort this overall shape like this. I'll select anchors like this, and I'll just move them so it's imperfect. It's almost like an egg shape now. And this is what I want to do for all of these shapes. I don't want them to be perfect. So we're going to take this, and I'm just going to select this anchor and move it over here like this. I might go ahead and make that this way. I might put this one here, adjust this one. So you can see these are imperfect shapes, and for this style, it really adds to it, especially when we're going to ultimately apply brushes to a lot of this, and it just looks more handcrafted when it's not precision geometry. Now, there's other shapes that are easy, like the shape here for the stroke. I can just use the line tool to get that. Those are easy. The ones on a curve, those are easy too. I can just go ahead and click this. And this is where you'll want to have Smart Guides turned on so you can snap onto that path. Then I'll go to the anchor point tool and we'll curve it to adjust those. So super easy building, nothing hard. I just wanted to show you that really quick. But when you have all your base shapes done like this, this is all you need. Now notice I created shapes that are overlapping other shapes like this, because ultimately when I take some of these shapes, it's going to overlap those areas and it's going to cover these. These two shapes are behind this shape. So on this one, let's say I want to add some line work to this. Let's go ahead and go down over here to this area here. And all we're going to do here is we're going to color this. So if I go ahead and color this green outline with a fill, that's fine. This will ultimately be behind this shape. And then this one, this might be outlined this color with this fill, And that's all I need to create everything I'm going to create with this design. We'll select these paths. These paths will be green like this. And that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to do that for everything. So what I end up with is all of my shapes have a stroke on them, as you can see here, and have a fill on them. Notice that this is behind this shape, as I stated previously. And this is where the line work brush will come in. So let's go ahead and move this over. We can close these like that. We're done. Actually, we can just close those out. We're done with that. And all we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on this so you can see it really large here, is we're going to take this shape, and the line work brush that we're going to apply to this stroke will be this first one here. So I'm going to click on it. You can see how it makes it imperfect. That's what we want. And then we're going to go ahead and select this. And this one, we're going to go ahead and click this line work brush to get that. That looks great, like that. And then on the next one, we'll take this stroke, since it goes into this one, and this one as well is going to be applied with a line work brush. That looks great. And then we'll just continue to do that on all of these shapes. So this blue shape here, we'll take this blue shape, and this one will have this applied to it. So it makes it imperfect. And this is what we're after. We want that imperfection because this is what's going to give the characteristic to this artwork. And it doesn't matter if the corners don't have that brush going around it. We're just affecting the edges overall, and that's going to work great. So if we select this one, go back here, maybe we apply that one to it. Once again, these paths can have any of these shapes applied to it. That one's probably not so great. That one looks a little better. And at times, if it's not looking too hot, what you can do is just go to strokes. And on this case, I might drop this down to 75, and I think it looks better. Or you could even drop it more to 0.5. But I think 0.75 is what we want. And I probably wouldn't use the same one on both of these. I might change that just so you have that variation going. And that's the principle we're doing here. It's not hard at all. Let's go ahead and focus on the eye. We'll do the shape of the eye here, and we'll go ahead and select this. And on the shape of the eye, we'll just apply that. I think that looks good. And this is the case where it's too big, so we'll cut it down to 0.5, and I think that looks better. And now if we go ahead and actually, maybe a little bigger. Let's apply this one. And we'll go ahead. We'll just use the same brush on this one. And that's way too big. So this is where we'd want to cut it down. I think that looks good. And then we can even apply it to shapes that are this small. This is a pretty small hotspot in the grand context of this design. So if you do it to a shape that's that small, it's not going to look too hot. So this is where you want to control that. And I go down to 0.25, which is going to be fine. Apply another one to this shape. Let's see, that one. And once again, way too big, like that. So at this size, it looks good, but it even looks better when you zoom out, and it looks imperfect compared to the other eye. That's all we're doing here, is we're using that principle to add this aesthetic to our overall design. Now, I have a lot of other elements here that I'd go in and do that exact type of line work and doing the stroke on it. I'm not going to spend all the time, but when it's all said and done, this is what the line work looks like once we've set all of those up. And look how cool that looks, from clean to really organic already, and we're not even done with this. And by the way, our tonal family looks like this. So we're using all these colors, very colorful design. And now we're going to go ahead and do some other elements, because what I want to do is add some simple shading. So I'm going to turn this on. And once again, we're going to do the shading using this color. At times, certain shading works great when you're using certain values to shade with. And in terms of this design, we're using this kind of gray value to do all the shading. And this might seem a little weird because it goes over yellow, but it's still going to work great. And this is where I wish Illustrator would come up with a different blend mode. I've told software developers this, like Astute, this would be a feature people would love. They need a blend mode called shading, where it interacts with the colors based off of how light would actually affect that color to cast a shadow on it. You can't really do that in Illustrator by default. There's no plugin to do that, but man, every single Illustrator I know would love it. So with this color selected, we're going to go to multiply, and you can see it looks great over all colors with, the orange and yellow looks a little muddy, but it's okay. I think it's still going to work okay. So we're going to go ahead and set the value here to about, I don't know, let's try 30% value. And I think maybe a little more than that, maybe 45, like that. And you can see how it interacts with the color. I think that'll work okay. And so all we're going to do now is we're going to just apply some of those, maybe even, I don't know. Let's go ahead and apply the art brushes to this one. So on this one, we want to apply an art brush to it. It's way too big. So we're going to go to stroke. We're going to adjust the size of the stroke. In this case, it's 1 point. So we want to go down maybe 0.5, like that, maybe even smaller, 0.4, like that. We don't want that color. What we want to do is we want to apply that gray value to it, like this. Then we go to multiply, like that. And then we're going to adjust this to 50. I think having it a little darker would look good. And now we get that shadowing effect. So that's all I'm going to do. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply that same idea to this one as well. On this one, we'll go ahead and color the stroke that color. We'll apply the brush. We'll knock this size down. I think this one maybe even smaller since it's maybe bigger. We'll do 0.35 like that. And we'll go to transparency. We'll go to multiply. Once again, this is pretty dark. So we'll knock off half the value just to get that little shading effect. The next thing I want to do is I want to add some shading on the eye here. And I want to add some shading on the mouth area here. So I'm going to select both of these. And on both of these, we're going to go ahead and, let's see, we might use the same one. Let's do, boy, that's way too, that's way too big. Okay, we're going to knock this down quite a bit. 0.25. Oh yeah, that looks good. I think we can get away with using the same one here. And we'll change the color to the gray. Nah, this is going over white. Let's do a blue, and then we'll adjust the value here. So right now it's full value of that blue. We're going to go down to only 30%, and then we'll adjust the blend mode to multiply. And I think that looks pretty good. We might even go, we might make this a little darker here. 70? No, 70 is too much. Maybe 40. Yeah, I like that better. So that's how I do the detailing in terms of shading. Now, if we go back to layers, I'll also do highlights the same way. But highlights are the easiest because if we select these two paths, which are going to be highlights, guess what color? Well, it's going to be white. And if we go ahead and we're going to apply the brushes to this, maybe we apply this brush up here. Oops, I have both of them selected. Well, it might work for this one too. Nah, I'll change it. We'll use the beta brush we created. And we're going to change the size, obviously way too big. So let's see what 0.35. That looks good. Now we'll just adjust the blend mode, or I'm sorry, the opacity. We're going to knock it down to 30%. That looks good. We'll click on this one. We're going to knock this one down in size. So on the size for this one, we're going to go, we'll do 35.35. And we'll adjust the opacity here to 30% as well. And I think that looks pretty good. So that's how I do the detailing on this. Ultimately, when the final shading is all done and I turn on that layer, it goes from this to really kind of a nice immersive look like this. And if we add a nice drop shadow, which means I have to expand all of these, so I made a copy of this layer to do that and offset it, this looks really cool as well. So a lot of fun, this style to work in. In terms of the shading, not hard. The highlighting, not hard. This is graphic. You're not trying to be realistic, so don't overthink it. Just have fun with it. And now there's a few final highlights I'm going to turn on here. And you can see how it really comes to life with all of those turned on as well. So it just adds a more painterly feel to everything. Looks a lot more handcrafted. This is where textures come in. And textures are great because this texture is just a old toothbrush with India ink that I created. And all we're going to create is we're going to take this, we're going to color it this nice turquoise color like that. And we're going to set the blend mode to multiply. And then we're going to adjust the value to 40% because I want it to be speckled, but I don't want it to kind of take over the design. Once we've done that, we're going to clone this, Command-C, Command-F, and we're going to rotate it 180 degrees, and we're just going to change the color, and the color is going to change to yellow. And I want this to be a little brighter, so we're going to go to 50% maybe. And I think that looks really good. And you can see how it interacts overall with the artwork. Wherever it overlaps on the artwork, it changes color. And it just adds another level of authenticity to the artwork. So this is how I'll use brushes and textures to make something more immersive and organic. And for this one, I also took typography and we work that in. This is a great quote. I'm probably going to mispronounce this name, but Dieter F. Uchtdorf, I think is how you pronounce his name. I'm sure you'll correct me if that's wrong. The desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul, and I'd totally agree with that. So it's always good to experiment and try new things because you discover new ways to work. I encourage you to step outside your comfort zone. Try new things, create your own brush set, then start experimenting with them and see what you can create. I bet you'll surprise yourself with your results. If you like this movie, please share a link to my YouTube channel on social media. I'd appreciate that. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe as well. Thank you for watching People of Process. I hope this content helps you improve your own creative process.